Love and Tears presents The Courtroom of Goodbye. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that you forgot where you ended and they began, if you've ever stood in front of the ruins of what you built together, wondering how love could turn to ash, then this story might feel a little too real. Welcome, my dear listeners, to Love and Tears. Tonight I'll tell you a story not of love found, but of love broken, and the quiet strength of a man who refused to die in silence. The courtroom was cold that morning. Too cold for the kind of ending Ethan Carter was standing in. The sound of the gavel had barely faded when Jessica leaned back in her chair, a smirk painted across her lips. The kind of smile that said she had already won. Her legs crossed with perfect precision, the red soles of her designer heels catching the light like tiny, cruel fires. "Your Honor," she purred, brushing a manicured nail against her cheek. "Let's be honest here." "My husband?" She paused, turning toward Ethan with that cruel, knowing gleam. He's like a workhorse, reliable, predictable, and very, very easy to ride. The courtroom gasped. Some laughed under their breath, others shifted uncomfortably. Even her lawyer cracked a smile. But Ethan didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just sat there, jaw tight, hands folded neatly on the table. She wanted him angry. She wanted a scene. But Ethan had already spent 8 years reacting to her storms. This time, he was going to be the calm. Jessica had been the one to file for divorce. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of a life built from nothing. And she had simply decided that he was no longer enough. Not exciting enough. Not successful enough. Not the man she thought she deserved. And instead of walking away quietly, she had dragged him into this public humiliation. She had already taken the house, the one Ethan had built himself brick by brick, late into the nights after work. She'd demanded half of his business, despite never contributing a single hour to it. And now, here she was, twisting the knife just to see him bleed. Her new boyfriend sat in the back row, watching the spectacle with detached amusement. Richard Brooks, corporate lawyer, smooth talker, and everything Jessica believed was better. Ethan's fingers brushed the edge of the table, steadying himself. He remembered the day he found them together in their own bed, wrapped in sheets he'd paid for. But today wasn't about heartbreak. It was about truth. Because what Jessica didn't know, what no one in that courtroom knew, was that this wasn't her final victory. This was the opening move in Ethan's quiet, devastating revenge. Her lawyer stood smug and confident. "Your Honor, my client simply wishes to express concern about Mr. Carter's ability to provide long-term alimony. She made significant lifestyle sacrifices during their marriage, and she deserves fair compensation." Sacrifices. Ethan almost laughed. Judge Reynolds adjusted his glasses and turned to him. "Mr. Carter, do you have a response?" Ethan rose slowly, his chair scraping softly against the floor. He took a deep breath, and then he began unbuttoning his shirt. The room fell silent. Even the judge tilted his head, curious. Button by button, Ethan undid his shirt, then shrugged it off completely. The chill of the courtroom air brushed against his skin. Gasps rippled through the room, because the man standing there was not the man Jessica had left months ago. Gone was the tired, soft figure she had grown bored of. In his place stood someone leaner, Hard shoulders, broad muscles, taut, eyes clear. Months of discipline, months of pain, months of rebuilding himself from the inside out. And right over his heart, a fresh tattoo. A powerful black stallion breaking free of its chains. Jessica's smirk vanished. Richard's amusement turned to unease. Ethan's voice was calm, almost quiet. You want to talk about sacrifices? He turned toward Judge Reynolds. For 8 years, I gave everything to this marriage. I worked overtime so she could find herself. I paid for her vacations, her designer clothes, her improvements. I even put her name on my company, thinking we were a team. He glanced toward Jessica, her face paling, her hands tightening in her lap. And how did she repay me? His voice hardened. By bringing him into my home. The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder. Jessica's lawyer tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand. Let him continue. Ethan nodded, pulling a thick manila envelope from his chair. He dropped it onto the table with a heavy thud. Inside, he said, are documents proving that Jessica Carter has been committing financial fraud, stealing from my company, hiding assets, and falsifying expense reports. The silence that followed was electric. Her eyes widened. Her lawyer froze. I'm not just rejecting her alimony request, Ethan said softly. I'm suing her for damages. The room erupted. Voices rose. Jessica's composure shattered. Judge Reynolds' gavel slammed down. Order! Order! Jessica's lawyer scrambled for words. Your Honor, we'd like a recess. Not yet, the judge said. Mr. Carter, you're saying you have proof. Ethan opened the envelope, revealing neat stacks of documents, bank transfers, forged expense reports, credit card statements. Yes, Your Honor, he said evenly. It took months to compile. I hired a forensic accountant. Every transaction, every false claim leads back to her. He laid the papers out carefully. Jessica looked as though the ground beneath her was disappearing. Ethan's tone was calm, almost kind. When she cheated, I didn't just get angry. I got focused. He turned to her again. You thought you were playing me, Jessica, but you were just setting yourself up. The judge flipped through the documents, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Carter, he said at last, do you have an explanation for this? Her voice trembled. This is ridiculous. He's making it up. I would never. Ethan slid another page across the table. Then, how do you explain this? He asked. An email from you instructing our accountant to shift money into your personal fund. Jessica's face drained of color. You hacked my email, she hissed. No, Ethan replied. I accessed my company's business communications, the same company you tried to steal from. Judge Reynolds exhaled heavily. These are serious accusations. The court will review all evidence before ruling on alimony. Her lawyer fumbled with his notes, clearly out of his depth. For the first time in their entire marriage, Jessica was powerless.